Welcome back to Echo Mind Documentaries. If this is your first time here, subscribe, like, share, and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. There are places on this earth that were never meant for human feet. Not deserts, not oceans, places where the air itself becomes the enemy, where the ground swallows heat and the sky forgets mercy. Scientists have gone in. Not all have come back the same. The earth does not belong to us. We have always known this, even when we refuse to say it out loud. Our ancestors said it with their rituals, with their offerings, with the careful way they named certain rivers and certain mountains. They knew that the land had its own laws, that there were territories where human ambition ends and something far older begins. We have built cities in deserts. We have carved roads through mountain ranges. We have drained swamps and rerouted rivers and convinced ourselves that this planet bends to our will. But it does not. There are places on this earth that have never welcomed a single heartbeat, that have swallowed explorers whole and returned nothing. That exist today exactly as they existed before the first human ever stood upright and looked at the horizon. These are not myths. They are geography, and they are humbling. The Danakil Depression sits in the northeastern corner of Ethiopia in the Horn of Africa, where the land has cracked open like something trying to escape from below. It is one of the lowest points on the continent and one of the hottest places on Earth. Temperatures here regularly exceed 50 degrees Celsius. The ground itself is not stable. Hydrothermal vents push boiling acid through the surface. Salt lakes shimmer in colors that have no name in most languages, green and yellow and white, beautiful and completely lethal. The air carries sulfur so dense that breathing without protection causes immediate damage to the lungs. And yet, the Afar people have lived on the edges of this place for thousands of years, reading it the way a healer reads a body, knowing which ground to trust and which to refuse. The Afar did not conquer the Danakil. They did not mine it dry or build resorts along its acid pools. They learned to exist beside it with the kind of respect that only comes from generations of listening. That is wisdom the modern world abandoned when it decided that knowledge meant dominance. But no one lives inside the Danakil. No village sits at its heart. No child plays near those vents, because the Danakil does not negotiate. It simply is. Cross to the other side of the continent and you find the Sahara. Not the romantic golden dune version that appears in films, but the real Sahara, the one that stretches across 11 countries and kills without announcement. The central regions of the Sahara, particularly the area known as the Tanazrouft in Algeria, have been called the land of terror by the people who know it best. There is no water, there is no shade, there are no landmarks. The temperature drops below freezing at night and climbs to 57 degrees by afternoon. A human body in the Tanazrouft without any supplies will be dead in less than 2 days. The sand does not mark where people fell, it simply covers them and moves on. African civilizations understood desert differently from what we are taught. The ancient Garamantians of what is now Libya built an underground irrigation system called the Fogara. Thousands of kilometers of hand-dug tunnels that carried water from deep aquifers to the surface. They did not try to live in the deep Sahara. They built at its edges. They understood the boundary. They honored it. There is a lesson in that which modern extraction industries have refused to learn, and which the desert is now teaching again in its own language. Move east across the Indian Ocean and you reach the place where Earth meets the sky in a way the human body was not designed for. The summit zone of Everest, above 8,000 meters, is called the death zone. Not because climbers named it dramatically, because the oxygen at that altitude is so thin that the human brain begins to die. Cells break down, decisions stop making sense. Climbers have been found sitting calmly in the snow, too confused to move, too depleted to feel cold. The body at that altitude begins to consume itself. Even with oxygen tanks and modern equipment, survival in the death zone is measured in hours. There are over 200 bodies still on the mountain. The cold preserves them. They have become landmarks. Other climbers pass them on the way to the summit. What kind of world have we built where human beings are used as trail markers? But the death zone asks no questions and offers no apologies. It simply holds altitude, and altitude holds its own authority. There is a place in the Pacific called Point Nemo. It is not a physical landmark, it is a coordinate. The point in the ocean furthest from any land in every direction. The nearest human beings to Point Nemo at any given moment are not on a ship or an island. They are the astronauts on the International Space Station, passing overhead at 400 kilometers above. The ocean at Point Nemo is so remote that it receives almost no nutrients from land. It is sometimes called the oceanic desert. Almost nothing lives there. The water is blue and vast and absolutely empty. If a ship broke down at Point Nemo, rescue would take weeks. In that time, the ocean would make every decision. It is a strange and clarifying thing to know that there is a point on this planet where looking up is closer to humanity than looking in any horizontal direction. Antarctica holds 70% of the world's fresh water and is the coldest, driest, windiest continent on Earth. In the interior, at places like Dome A or the Pole of Inaccessibility, temperatures fall to minus 90 degrees Celsius. Wind speeds reach 300 kilometers per hour. In that wind, at that temperature, exposed skin freezes in less than 60 seconds. The continent has no indigenous human population. It never has. In the entire history of our species, no human culture ever called Antarctica home. It is the one place on Earth that has never been claimed by a people, never named in an ancestor's language, never held in anyone's memory as a place of origin. It belongs only to itself. And then there is the ocean floor. The Mariana Trench drops nearly 11 kilometers below the surface of the Pacific. The pressure at that depth is over 1,000 times the pressure at sea level. It would crush a human body instantly without the most extreme engineering protection. It is dark, completely dark, cold in a way that is difficult to imagine, and yet life exists there. Creatures that evolved in absolute pressure, in absolute darkness, in absolute cold. Life that has never needed sunlight and has never needed air. Life that does not know what a human being is and has survived for millions of years without the concept. We have explored less than 20% of our own oceans. We know more about the surface of Mars than we do about what lives beneath us. The Sud is a vast swampland in South Sudan, one of the largest wetlands in the world. It swells to over 130,000 square kilometers during rainy season. The water is slow and dark and thick with vegetation. Malaria, cholera, bilharzia. The air is humid beyond description. Navigation is nearly impossible because the landscape shifts constantly as floating islands of papyrus drift across what were channels the day before. Explorers in the 19th century trying to find the source of the Nile became trapped in the Sud for months. Some turned back, some did not return. The Nile itself slows when it enters the Sud, losing enormous volumes of water to evaporation, as though the swamp is drinking from the river before allowing it to continue north. The people of the Sud, the Dinka, the Nuer, the Shilluk, have lived at its edges for millennia. They know where the ground holds and where it does not. They know the seasonal rhythms. They have built entire cultures and languages and governance systems in relationship with this water. But they do not go into the deep Sud. They do not need to. They are wise enough to understand that some places are not for entering. Some places are for living beside with gratitude and enough fear to stay careful. That fear is not weakness. That fear is memory. The kind of memory that keeps a people alive across centuries. There is a volcano in Vanuatu in the Pacific called Merom. It is one of the most active lava lakes on Earth. The crater holds molten rock at 1,200 degrees Celsius, constantly churning, constantly releasing sulfur dioxide and hydrochloric acid into the air around it. Scientists have descended into the crater with full protective suits and could only survive for a few minutes before the heat and the gas made descent impossible. 1 meter inside the crater rim, any organic material burns. The rock glows orange and the air shimmers with heat that has no category in ordinary human experience. The Earth here is not solid. It is alive in the most literal sense, moving, breathing, consuming itself, and renewing itself simultaneously. No suit is enough. No preparation is sufficient. You go to the edge of Merom and you understand, in your body rather than your mind, that there are forces on this planet that are not hostile to humanity. They simply exist outside of anything humanity can measure or manage or survive. We came from this Earth. We carry its minerals in our blood, its water in our cells, its dust in our bones. We were shaped by its pressures and its temperatures and its rhythms across millions of years of evolution. And yet, it can erase us in seconds. It can end the most prepared, most equipped, most determined human being with a wind, a temperature, a depth, an altitude. Our ancestors did not see this as defeat. They saw it as instruction. They built their villages near rivers but above floodlines. They planted their fields in fertile valleys and left the mountain peaks alone. They named the dangerous places and warned their children. They made those warnings into stories so that the knowledge would survive even when the people who first learned it were gone. That is what it means to live on this earth rather than against it. The modern world has largely forgotten this. It has built infrastructure in floodplains and cities in drought zones and pipelines through earthquake faults. It has confused the temporary absence of disaster for the permanent absence of risk. And the Earth has begun to respond in the language it has always used, the only language it has. Not words, events. The places where humans cannot survive are not warnings from the future. They are reminders from the Earth's past, from a time before we arrived, and from a time perhaps after we are gone. They are the planets showing us what it looked like before we became loud, what it will look like again when it needs to breathe. We did not tame this world, we borrowed space in it. And the places where we were never able to borrow, where the rent was always too high and the terms were always impossible, those places remain, unchanged, patient, magnificent. They are not threats, they are teachers, and we have not yet learned enough to stop being afraid of them.